I've been looking at the president's 120-word FBI budget request, the so-called skinny, I'll call it Ozempic request, that states that, quote, the undoing of the weaponization of the FBI is one of the administration's top priorities. The weaponization of the FBI that is something that deeply concerns me. It should concern all of us.
Watching Rep. Madeleine Dean question FBI Director Kash Patel, you could feel the tension immediately. Kash Patel couldn't stand the heat.
And yet, since taking office, President Trump has been on a revenge tour. He has targeted individuals, universities, law firms, with executive orders to cut them out or to make them come under his will. He has used ICE to disappear U.S. citizens without due process, and he's fully ignored a unanimous Supreme Court order, and then over the weekend wasn't sure if he was obligated to uphold the Constitution of the United States. In your book, your recent book, Government Gangsters, you include an appendix with a list of names that people have referred to as an enemies list. Now, I know you will claim it's just an appendix, not an enemies list. So let's focus on how the president sees it, on what the president calls it. And you proudly display his quote on the front cover of your book. The president calls this a brilliant roadmap, a blueprint. And I have not even raised your storied children's book, The Plot Against the King. It concerns me how many people from this blueprint have been targeted with executive orders and FBI investigations. The FBI cannot be weaponized, and under your leadership, it has been nothing but a weapon alongside the president to go after the president's perceived opponents, to stifle dissent and free speech. A few weeks ago, as we saw through a social media post that you quickly deleted, the FBI arrested a judge in Wisconsin for correctly asking ICE officials if they had a judicial warrant instead of an administrative warrant, which they did not have. Despite this judge following the law, on the morning of April the 25th, the FBI arrested the judge in an escalation of the weaponization of the FBI under your leadership. Let me be clear. A functioning democracy does not lock up judges. I am gravely concerned about the utter lack of independence of the FBI and its weaponization under your leadership. I am concerned that the president is using this book, your book, as a blueprint, as he has said. It's a blueprint for revenge. And I am concerned that your eagerness, a childlike giddiness to carry out the president's revenge tour, you've shown yourself to be unserious in your statements before you were sworn in and some after. You've shown yourself unfit to lead this important agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book.
So
there are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people, and they were rightly called out. And you should give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6 insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that
the answer is you're failing, not me.
I will play my time.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve the very best, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing their job. And I'll end with this, that I think it's interesting that in your proposal today, you find yourself at a gulf of difference between you and the president. I wonder how you will resolve that. Will you go to the president and say we need $11.2 billion, not what you cut out of here? You're asking for more than $1 billion than the president's request. Are you going to go to the president and straighten out that gulf?
I'll do what I've always done and represent the American people, defend this country, and make sure the Constitution is always upheld and the FBI is never weaponized. Maybe you should do the same.
So you agree with the president when he says he doesn't know if he should uphold his constitutional duty?
If you want to just keep putting words in my mouth, the TV cameras are outside.
I thank you. I yield back. Again, this is an unserious moment, sadly, for the FBI. I yield back.
More so for you.
Mr. Strong.
And here's the part that should unsettle everyone watching this, regardless of party. This isn't about whether you like Madeleine Dean. This isn't about whether you trust Kash Patel. This isn't even about Donald Trump as a person. This is about power, and what happens when power stops being restrained by norms, by law, and by fear of consequences. Because listen carefully to what happened in that hearing. A sitting member of Congress openly asked the FBI director when she should expect federal agents at her door, not because she committed a crime, but because she once held a president accountable. That sentence alone should stop you cold. In healthy democracies, lawmakers don't fear law enforcement. Judges don't fear arrest for doing their jobs. Whistleblowers don't fear retaliation for telling the truth. But fear is exactly what is creeping into this system, slowly, deliberately, and with applause from people who think it will only ever be used against the other side. That's always how it starts. It starts with justifications. It starts with slogans like de-weaponization. It starts with books framed as exposés and sold as roadmaps. It starts with leaders insisting they are the real victims while holding the most power. And then one day, the rules quietly change. Oversight becomes harassment. Dissent becomes disloyalty. Due process becomes optional. And loyalty to a single man becomes the ultimate qualification. What made this hearing so disturbing was Patel's defensiveness. It was his contempt for the question itself, the idea that he should be accountable, the idea that his past statements matter, the idea that facts, memory, and truth still have weight. When someone responds to oversight with anger instead of answers, that tells you everything. And when the FBI, an institution that only works if the public trusts it, starts looking like a political instrument, that trust doesn't just erode. It collapses. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Once law enforcement is openly politicized, it never stays neatly contained. It doesn't just go after bad people. It goes after inconvenient people, after critics, after journalists, after judges, after lawmakers, after ordinary citizens who speak too loudly, post too boldly, or ask the wrong questions. And by the time people realize it's happening, the machinery is already in motion. This isn't alarmism. This is pattern recognition. We have seen this play out across history, across countries, across decades. Democracies don't usually fall to tanks. They fall to paperwork, to warrants, to executive orders, to silence disguised as order. That's why moments like this matter. Not because of who won the exchange. not because of viral clips or sound bites, but because it shows us where the lines are being redrawn and how comfortable some people have become erasing them. Madeleine Dean didn't ask her question because she's afraid of Kash Patel. She asked it because she understands something fundamental. When accountability disappears at the top, fear spreads downward. And once fear becomes normalized, freedom doesn't vanish all at once. It just slowly becomes something you remember having. So no, this wasn't just another heated hearing. This was a warning flare. And the only real question left is whether we choose to notice it. Or whether we wait until the knock at the door is no longer hypothetical. If you care about the rule of law, about independent institutions, about a democracy that doesn't punish dissent, don't scroll past this. Don't dismiss it. Don't let it fade. Because the cost of looking away has never been cheap. And it's always paid later. Stay alert, stay engaged, and don't let power operate unchecked in the dark.